In February 2022, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced what he called a special military operation in Ukraine, promising that the operation would be swift and decisive 2 weeks, tops, as he stated. Fast forward to today, nearly 2.5 years later, and the situation looks very different. Instead of crushing Ukraine's defenses, Putin's military forces have been battered and humiliated, with Russia failing to achieve its original goals. At the start of the conflict, Russia, which was ranked as having one of the world's strongest militaries, was expected to quickly overwhelm Ukraine. But as we look deeper into the reality of Russia's military efforts, the situation tells a far different story. What went wrong? The collapse of the Russian military. Initially, Russia was considered to be the second largest military power in the world, just behind the United States. The Global Firepower Index, which evaluates countries' military strengths across various categories, listed Russia high on the list. But a closer look at Russia's forces reveals the cracks in its facade. Russia's military, despite its size and equipment, has faced significant issues that have become glaringly apparent in the face of a determined and resourceful opponent like Ukraine. Let's break down what has happened. Manpower, a numbers game. Russia's first apparent advantage over Ukraine was its sheer size. With a population of roughly 145 million, compared to Ukraine's 41 million, Russia had the numbers. The Global Firepower Index reported that Russia had an active military personnel count of about 1.3 million, with a significant portion of them dedicated to ground operations. Ukraine, on the other hand, had far fewer resources and soldiers. But while the numbers seemed to favor Russia, the reality was much different. The initial Russian invasion force consisted of around 170,000 troops. By 2023, this number had risen to 300,000 due to the recruitment of mercenaries, contracts, and conscription. But Russia was losing troops at an alarming rate. Estimates suggest that over 645,000 Russian soldiers had been lost over the course of the war, including both fatalities and severe injuries. By mid-2024, Russia's losses were averaging around 1,200 soldiers per day, with some days seeing even higher numbers. The conscription strategy, which has been integral to Russia's ability to replenish its forces, has not been enough to keep up with the casualties. And this is where things begin to unravel. Russia has resorted to rapidly signing new contracts, even conscripting prisoners in exchange for military service. By the end of 2023, Russia was enlisting thousands of new recruits daily, but the results have been mixed. The quality of training for these new soldiers has been a significant issue. Reports indicate that many conscripts receive only a few weeks of basic training before being sent to the front lines, often leaving them ill-prepared for the brutal realities of war. The training deficiency. One of the most critical factors contributing to Russia's failure has been the lack of proper training for its troops. Unlike the more structured military training systems of other countries, Russia's forces often combine conscripts and contract soldiers into the same units. This approach leads to uneven training levels, with some soldiers receiving minimal preparation. Additionally, the conscription system's rapid turnover creates a situation where many soldiers only serve for short periods, limiting the effectiveness of training. The result is an army that is poorly prepared, poorly equipped, and demoralized. This is especially evident in regions like Kursk, where Russian soldiers were reported to have surrendered in droves, citing lack of training and equipment as key reasons for their failure to hold the line. The struggle for equipment. Russia's military, once equipped with advanced technology, has faced severe limitations in the ongoing conflict. The T-80 tank, once a formidable force, now suffers from a critical design flaw. Its vulnerable automated reloading system makes it an easy target for Ukraine's anti-tank weapons. Even the more modern T-90 tanks have struggled against Ukraine's advanced defenses. As a result, Russia has resorted to deploying older tanks, like the T-72, T-64, and T-62, from reserves. Additionally, nearly 18,000 of Russia's 19,000 infantry support vehicles are outdated and ineffective. This equipment shortage has forced Russia to rely on aging models, unable to compete with Ukraine's evolving warfare tactics. The strategic disaster of attrition warfare. Putin's strategy seems to have evolved into one of attrition, hoping that Russia's larger population and resources would eventually wear down Ukraine. But this strategy has failed spectacularly. The massive losses of both manpower and equipment have eroded Russia's ability to maintain any significant advantage over Ukraine. Despite this, Russia has not given up on its war of attrition. In 2023 and 2024, Russia ramped up conscription efforts, calling in hundreds of thousands of soldiers to reinforce its ranks. But this has led to further issues. Many soldiers, particularly those with minimal training, have been sent to the front lines without adequate preparation or the necessary equipment. The significant losses, combined with the low morale of Russian troops, have made it difficult for Russia to sustain an effective military presence. The invasion of Kursk, for example, highlighted the desperate state of Russia's forces, where the majority of prisoners taken by Ukrainian forces were inexperienced conscripts, many of whom had only undergone minimal training before being sent into battle. Supply chain issues and international support. While Russia has struggled with manpower and equipment, Ukraine has been receiving significant international support, especially from NATO countries. The continuous flow of modern military aid has helped Ukraine defend its territory, with the US and European nations providing advanced weapon systems such as anti-tank missiles, drones, and artillery. Russia, on the other hand, has had to turn to other countries like North Korea and Iran to bolster its supplies. In return for weapons and military technology, Russia has been supplying food and other resources to these nations, highlighting how isolated it has become on the global stage. This relationship, driven by desperation, underscores the dire economic and logistical difficulties Russia faces. The Air Force and naval failures. Russia's Air Force, once a symbol of military strength, has also failed to live up to expectations. While Russia has a substantial number of fighter jets, many of its planes are aging and nearing the end of their service life. The aircraft's effectiveness has been diminished by Ukraine's strong anti-air defenses and its ability to take out Russian air bases, further complicating Russia's air superiority. On the naval front, Russia has seen some early successes in occupying Ukrainian ports, but Ukraine has fought back with innovative tactics, including drone strikes that have damaged Russian ships and infrastructure in the Black Sea. The Black Sea Fleet has been unable to establish dominance, and Russia has failed to sever Ukraine's vital grain trade routes, which are crucial for the country's economy. Russia's economic struggles. As the war drags on, Russia's economy has taken a heavy hit. The Ministry of Finance reported that in 2024, a third of the country's budget was allocated to military spending, a staggering figure that strains the country's economic resources. The reliance on oil and gas exports has been disrupted by Ukraine's strikes on key infrastructure, leading to shortages and a significant drop in revenue. In response, Russia has turned to countries like Kazakhstan to meet its fuel needs, further exposing its economic vulnerabilities. As the war continues, Russia's financial situation is unlikely to improve, leaving its military increasingly dependent on outdated equipment and hastily trained soldiers. The future of Russia's military. Russia's military is on a path to further decline due to mounting losses and dwindling resources. While the attrition strategy seemed viable initially, the long-term consequences are clear. A demoralized, undertrained army with failing equipment and an economy struggling to support the war effort. Putin's push for victory appears increasingly futile as Russian morale hits an all-time low. With NATO support bolstering Ukraine and Russia facing numerous setbacks, it seems unlikely that Putin can recover from this military disaster. The special military operation that was meant to be a quick victory has turned into a prolonged conflict, exposing Russia's military weaknesses and putting its future in jeopardy. Thanks for sticking with me through this roller coaster of military mishaps. Russia's military might have thought it was the big dog, but now it's just a little puppy caught in a tank-sized mess. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss the next epic failure. Trust me, there's more where that came from. Catch you in the next one.